So the first thing everybody sees is Bhakti. Sound, I don't know. We'll find out. Hare Krishna. So we're live streaming this at the same time. So if anybody who's online, you could tell us, please, if the sound is good enough. We're not going to be able to do a lot different. Maybe something. We don't have our fancy mic system. Subhadra
Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra.
Jagannath Swami Jaya Patayani, Jaya Patayani Baba.
Jagannath Swami, Jaya Patayani, Jaya Patayani Baba.
So, we're live streaming this also. So if anybody's online and you're watching this and you can't hear me very well, just say something. We could try to do one other thing that's not so convenient. Just let us know. We'll just begin with a few prayers. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goranga Gura Tamagopya the Kopa Briksham Gopala Gadaratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Hridaya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jejana Goranga Bhaje Sehoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Vidhana Padama Pumarta Tasmai Jaganmangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikuryat kripaya jadi Tadaiva sambraya pitva rishi yustat priya janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Vanshakapadarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare So she'll die. No. The difficulty that we have today is that I don't know. Okay. So if anybody wants to hear a Russian translation, Mataji is very expert. You can go sit in the back.
Ближе туда подсаживайтесь к матушке, кто хочет перевод слушать.
And if you don't like Russian translation, you like Ukrainian, then we have to fix something else. Okay, so there's a difficulty we have today. The difficulty is I don't know everybody here, and we'd like to welcome everybody first of all to our house. This is our ashram. This is Giriraj's ashram. This is the place where we do Gopalji publications. We make the books and Krishna Katamrita magazine. We make books like this. Our Guru Maharaj, Srimad Govinda Maharaj. And it's a place where we have our Gora ashram. Gora stands for the Gaudiya Odia Research Association. We have a library downstairs. And we're researching old little books in Bengali and Odia, and that's another big subject matter. But back to our problem. See, our problem is that the soul, by nature, wants something which is intimate. We want some sweetness by nature. And therefore, Rupa Goswami, in Upadeshamrita, his most important instructions, he says, Guyam Akyati Prichati. That this is how we should associate with devotees. And we all naturally want that. And to put in a very simplistic way, to summarize the most of the complaints that I hear from devotees, it's because it's not Guyam. It's not so intimate. Why are they speaking about vegetarianism in Bhagavatam class, in the Bible, to 100 devotees who are all vegetarian? You're vegetarian, Prabhuji? Yes. You don't eat fish either? No eggs? No eggs either. That's good. So, how many of you here eat fish or eggs? Not did you? So that's not Guyam. So we won't talk about that. Thank you very much. So we want naturally to hear something more intimate, but that intimacy, there's a price to pay for that. And the price is we have to have some relationship. There has to be some trust and knowledge. So I don't know everybody here. So that price hasn't always been paid. So still we're going to try. My Guru Maharaj spoke about this sometimes. He said that I want to speak about something very confidential, but I don't see that the devotees are qualified to hear. But still, I feel I have to say this. And why does he have to say that? Sometimes we have a problem with that. No. You're not supposed to hear anything confidential. If they start reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, put your fingers in your ears. Don't hear Upadeshamrita past maybe the first 2 verses or 3 verses. We think like that. But I'll say something very bold. we should all read Krishna book. Prabhupada wanted that. We should all read all the books of Srimad. But we should do it in a proper context. And the Sunday feast is not a place to talk about Radha Krishna. But when we come amongst devotees, if we don't have Guyam Akyati Prichati, intimate topics, then we're not satisfied. We want something more. And my revered spiritual master, Srimad Govinda Maharaj, he wanted that we have these topics within ISKCON. He once told me that we should work to help uphold the prestige of Prabhupada's mission. And he said the best way to do that is to have nice Krishna Katha and nice Vaishnava dealings. It's important. Our society is mostly a preaching mission. And we should respect the fact that the temples are kind of like schools or even kindergartens, which are meant for training new people. And so when you go to kindergarten, you don't start speaking about quantum mechanics before kindergarten students. It's not appropriate. Do you know quantum mechanics? I don't know quantum mechanics. I don't even know what the word means. It means something very small. We should speak something which is appropriate. And because we have so many new people, and because the temples are so many new people, then we're always speaking to the new people. And when we speak to the devotees are kind of like spectators. Oh, this is how they speak to new people. And we watch that. And so it's all about that kind of thing. But is it any wonder then that sometimes devotees after 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 years, they'd like to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. They'd like to understand something deeper. And they don't feel fully satisfied. And so sometimes they leave. And they go somewhere else. And that caused so much pain in the heart of my Guru Maharaj. And Prabhupada had told my Guru Maharaj that I want you to speak to the devotees. So he instructed us that we should try to have nice Krishna Katha and nice Vaishnava dealings. So this is our difficulty this morning. I'd like to speak to you about Puri and Jagannath, and again, I don't know most of you, and we have many devotees online that I also don't know. What is Jagannath Puri? In the Skanda Purana, it said, Rahasyam etat paramam Vishnu stanam anutamam. This is stanam anutamam. This is a very, very great place. But it's Raham, the place of the Blue Hill. It's known as Gupta Dham, a hidden Dham. It's known as, what's the phrase? Forgetting myself now. It's known as Paramapavana Dham. It's known as Durlabha Ketra. Durlabha Ketra means, go ahead and bring it closer. I'm going to have to speak in the microphone here. Durlabha Ketra means a place which is very difficult to enter into. It's also has many, many different names. And it's understood by many, many different people in different ways. Like this? I'll try. So if devotees online can hear okay, just let me know. It's a little awkward, sorry. we feel a little uncomfortable sometimes with all the machines and all the things because it's impersonal. If the most personal thing you can do is go on Facebook, there's a problem in your life. I hope you don't associate with your wife on Facebook. Say that. So, what is this Dham? And if you come at the time of Rath Yatra, like everybody here is, you'll find a very fascinating thing. First of all, many of you have been to Vrindavan, maybe all of you. How many of you have been to Radharaman Temple? Raise your hand. Pretty much there. Isn't it such a sweet, wonderful temple? And they do so many wonderful bhajans and things there. How many times at the Radharaman Temple do you see Christians? How many times do you see Muslims? How many times do you see non-devotees, politicians or whatever? Maybe once in a while, but it's a very rare thing. But come to Rath Yatra. There's so many, many different types of people who come to see Jagannath. And they all see him in so many different ways. You have mostly Vaishnavas who are coming and Hindus. But some of the Hindus, they think that Jagannath is actually Lord Shiva. Some of them think that he's actually Ganesh. Some of them think that he's Savishesh Brahman, that he's Brahman with a form. Some of them see him as Lord Narayan. Some of them see him as Ramachandra. Some see him as Krishna in Dwarka. And some, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, see him as Krishna in Vrindavan. There's also Christians who come. There are many persons who were converted to Christianity here in Jagannath, here in Orissa. They're originally from Hindu backgrounds. They're Vaishnavas. They were converted, so-called, to Christianity. But they all come for Rath Yatra. Still, they're Christians, but they come for Rath Yatra. They're Muslims. There was an article in the newspaper. Every year in Orissa, all the villages that have Jagannath temples, they do Rath Yatra on the same day as a Rath Yatra, because that's the Tithi, the day that it's supposed to be done. And there's one village where every year the Rath Yatra cart is made by the Muslims. And the festival is put together by the Muslims. And every year at the time of Rath Yatra, you'll find big politicians and big movie stars coming to Rath Yatra. And they're also worshipping Jagannath. He's a cultural symbol, they say. So who's correct and who's wrong in their conception? The amazing thing is that they're all correct. And we can understand this just like in our lives. An ordinary person is so complex. Your teacher calls you stupid, or calls you student, hopefully. Your friends call you bhai or brother. Your mother calls you boo-boo. Your girlfriend calls you snookums or sweetie or whatever. We have so many different names and so many different versions of ourselves with so many different people. And what to speak of Krishna? But Radharaman, he's Radharaman. He's Krishna. But Jagannath is so many things to so many different people. And therefore, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it said that Lord Jagannath, he is the deity for this age. Because everyone can worship Jagannath. They're all correct. And Jagannath accepts all of it. But we don't feel so satisfied with that. Because we want Guyam Akyati Prichyati. Right? We want something more confidential. We'd like to know, what is the conception of Jagannath that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers have? Srila Prabhupada in one lecture in Vrindavan in 1972 in Nectar of Devotion, he spoke about two types of conceptions, which he called Smarta Vichar. Vichar means a conception or understanding. And Goswami Vichar. The Smarta Vichar is a conception of the Smarta Brahmins. And the Goswami Vichar is a conception of the six Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and their followers. And there's a big difference between the two. But sometimes it gets confusing when we come to Jagannath Puri to figure out what is the Smarta Vichar and what is the Goswami Vichar. You know that here in Orissa, so many people chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Even the Smartas, even the Mayavadis. Smarta in general means a follower of Shankaracharya in general. And at the time of their wedding ceremony, the bride, the lady, is traditionally initiated into the Hare Krishna mantra. Now, what is their conception of Krishna and Jagannath and the Hare Krishna mantra? That's another thing. But they're worshipping Krishna, but they have this Smarta Vichar. We find this in the 12th chapter of the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Maharaj Prataparudra was on the roof of his palace, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there with him, and Sarvabhauma was telling him, this is Nityananda Prabhu, this is Advaita, this is Srivas. He was pointing out all the different devotees and associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Maharaj Prataparudra was astonished. He was watching, and one of the first things he said is, he said, I'm used to kirtan. Maharaj Prataparudra said, we have kirtan here in Orissa. We chant Hare Krishna, but I've never seen kirtan like this before. He's used to kirtan, which may be Smarta Vichar, but this is Goswami Vichar. This is Prema Nam Sankirtan. It's not Kebala Nam or common kirtan. So, and then he was watching everyone, and he said, hey, Sarvabhauma, what's going on? Look, they're not shaving their head. They're not going to take bath in the ocean or Sweta Ganga and going to have darshan of Jagannath. Where are they all going? Because when you come to Jagannath Puri, you're supposed to shave your head first. Sometimes even the ladies do that. And you fast, you take bath in different sacred places, and then you go for darshan of Jagannath. But they're not doing that. They're not following the rules and regulations. Sometimes even ISKCON devotees become disturbed. Prabhu, I was watching when you did Tulsi Artik. How dare you? When you were waving the incense, you only waved it 3 times to Tulsi's feet instead of 4 times. It's a big offense. Sometimes we think like that. We put so much stress on the rituals. I never heard of Prabhupada chastising someone for that. Because we follow Goswami Vichar. We have our ceremonies, but we have some purport behind them. So Maharaj Prataparudra was confused. What are they doing? They're not fasting. They're not going to see Jagannath. What are they doing? He said, they're going to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're running to see him. Because the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu want to understand what is the conception of Mahaprabhu about this Dham. Because there's so many conceptions, and we may become confused. And at Rath Yatra time, you'll see so many different types of tilak. Some are very thick like this, and so many different types of sadhus. Sometimes you'll see some nagababbas who are just wearing a kopan or something, people with cobras and all kinds of strange, strange things. But they're devotees of Jagannath. One lesson we have from Jagannath Puri and Rath Yatra is the inclusiveness of Vedic culture. Or to put it in another way, in the words of Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada said we should have unity in diversity. It's kind of hard for us sometimes. we become upset if somebody just comes to the temple once in a while and maybe they chant Hare Krishna, but they're also chanting Om Namo Shivaya. We don't like them. You're not a good person. Or they're gambling, or they're smoking, or maybe they're a Christian, but they're chanting a little Hare Krishna. Sometimes we don't like that. Why don't we celebrate it? Why don't we celebrate this is our friend and they're coming. They have something in common with us. We want to be pure Vaishnavas. We want to be followers of Rupa Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in Puri, we see in India, there's so many people who worship the Lord. Chodike Mahanta Mili, Kodaye Kirtana Keli, Sata Sampradaya Gaya Gita. There's an old Bengali song speaking about Rath Yatra. And what is going on at Rath Yatra? Chodike Mahanta Mili. And from all different directions, all the different Mahants are coming. Different types of Mahants. How many times do we see Mahants coming to our temples? Someone from the Gaudiya Math and someone from the Babaji's and this and that. It doesn't usually happen. But at Rath Yatra, so many different Mahants are coming. Chodike Mahanta Mili, Kodaye Kirtana Keli. And they're doing kirtan together. It's very, very ecstatic. Sata Sampradaya Gaya Gita. And there's 100 different sampradayas and they're all doing kirtan together. The word sampradaya is used over a dozen times in Madhya Lila chapter 13, which speaks about the Rath Yatra. And interestingly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami uses the word sampradaya to speak about the followers of Mukunda, to speak about the followers of Advaitacharya, to speak about the followers of Nityananda Prabhu, the followers of Gadadhar Pandit, the followers of Srivas Thakur. And you may say, excuse me, I thought we were all part of the Chaitanya Sampradaya, the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Why is this word being used so many different times for so many different followers of Mahaprabhu? Because they're all little different sampradayas. But they're all under the one big umbrella of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath. So, let's discuss a little something about Jagannath Puri. And what is this place? Why is it so special to Gaudiya Vaishnavas? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came here. Here in Jagannath Puri, let me think now. I revised our account recently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know 5 different stones that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu melted. Now, how many different stones did Mahaprabhu melt in Mayapur? Adi Kavi Prabhu likes Mayapur very much. Yes? So tell us, how many stones did Mahaprabhu melt in Mayapur? In Mayapur. Only? Only the hearts are melted. What a good answer. That's an excellent answer. Are stone-like hearts were melted? Yes, he did melt some stones in Mayapur. Very good. That's the best answer I've ever heard for that question. Sorry. Okay. Rasalila, she likes Vrindavan. Still, they're married. They like each other. But she likes Vrindavan, he likes Mayapur. And Rasalila, how many stones did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu melt in Vrindavan? He melted Govardhan.
There is one small Shiva in Radhaman temple.
Okay, so I've got right here, Krishna. They're suggesting that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu melted this Govardhan Shila that he later gave to Raghunath Das Goswami. But I have a question for you then. Did he melt that in Vrindavan? Where did he melt that stone? He melted it here in Jagannath Puri. Here in Jagannath Puri, according to locals, there's 5 different stones that he melted. He melted his footprints beside the Garuda Stamba. Mataji's the only person who can go inside. You have to go inside for all of us. They have a separate shrine now for Mahaprabhu's footprints there. He melted his footprints. He melted 3 fingerprints in the Garuda Stamba, the column of Garuda. That's the second stone. They say there's a stone. I actually have a photo somewhere. Some secret photo some Pandit took from me inside the Jagannath Mandir. that when Mahaprabhu originally fell unconscious next to Jagannath, when he went in the temple, he melted his handprint and his arm print. And that's there to this day, near the Jagannath, near the altar of Lord Jagannath. So that's number what? That's number 3. 3, okay? Then he melted the Govardhan Shila, which he later gave to Raghunath Das Goswami. That's 4. And 5 was when he went to Brahmagiri Alanath. Highly recommended place to go to. Maybe some of us will go this time, I don't know. And when he had darshan of Lord Alanath, he began rolling on the ground and he melted his entire body print there. So, why is it that his ecstasy became so great here in Jagannath Puri that he melted the stone? But in Mayapur, only thing he melted was Adi Kavi Prabhu's heart. And we don't know any stones that he melted in Vrindavan. How is it that his ecstasy seems greater here than in those other places? Now, just as a little side note, Sarvadrik Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, my friend and god uncle, he was writing to me this morning with a question, which has something to do with this. I'm not going to go real deep into this, maybe a little later. But he was asking, he said that some Vaishnavas, they say that Mahaprabhu's ecstasies here were actually a manifestation of Aishvarya, or opulence. And he's asking what I think of that. Well, we should quote Shastra. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains the nature of Aishvarya, or opulence. He says, Aishvarya priti sankuchita. That the nature of Aishvarya is it makes love shrink. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his ecstasies in Puri, we don't see that it made the hearts of the devotees, that their love for him shrink. Rather, it intensified thousands of times over. Maybe it was a kind of transcendental opulence. Perhaps that's what some Vaishnavas mean to say. Just as Srimati Radharani, her Aishvarya, her opulence might be said to be her ecstasy. I've not read that anywhere, but someone may say like that. That sounds kind of reasonable. But in general, when we think of Aishvarya, we think of Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra. He was bosom friends with Krishna, eating on the same plate, sleeping on the same bed. And then Krishna showed him his Virat Rup. And right after that, then Arjuna started offering prayers. Deva, Deva, Jagatpate, you're the God of gods, and this and that. And please forgive me, dosha kami moadami koto nija das. Please forgive me for my offenses, make me your servant. And his love became shrunken. Just like you may have a drug, a good friend you meet, and you're getting along very good, but you didn't know, actually, it's Mr. Bill Gates, or some fabulously rich person in disguise. And you're a good buddy, but when you find out how much wealth he has and how big a person he is, then you become afraid of him. So that's the nature, generally, of opulence. So what is this Dham, then? We should explore a little bit in Shastra. Let's turn to the Chaitanya Bhagavat. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in Unchalila chapter 2, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, he speaks something about the nature of Jagannath Puri Dham. And Krishna is speaking these words. I'll sing these verses in Bengali, and you can chant Hare Krishna in response. Sarvakala Seshtane Amara Vasitan Kati Dina Amara Bhujana Hoy Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Very interesting thing. For anybody who's interested in buying property, because maybe living in Ukraine's a little difficult, it's a little hard to figure out a future there right now. Or other places in the world, because a lot of people are saying there's some, maybe world war coming or something. This is a good place to be. Because Krishna says, Sarva Kala Seshtani Amara Bhashita. That this place is my eternal home. He says, Ananta Brahmanda Kale Jakana Shanhare. That when all the universes are destroyed, Tabu Seshtani Rakicha Koritini Pari. This place remains. When everything else is destroyed. Jagannath Puri is still here. Highly recommended by God. And he says that Sarva Kala Seshtani Amadabasi, that throughout time, this is my eternal home. One person I know, so many people have so many confusing ideas about Puri. Some people say it's not actually a Dham. Try telling that to the millions of Hindus who go to Charadham Yatra, the 4 different Dhams. This is the Dham, the Jagannathpuri Dham, is the Dham for Kali Yuga. And Dwarka Dham is the Dham for Dwarpar Yuga. And trying to think, in the Himalayas, Badrak Ashram is a place for Satya Yuga. And in South India, Rameshwaram is a place for Treta Yuga. Thank you. So Krishna says very clearly though, Sarva Kala, throughout all time, Sarva Sala Seshtani Amadabasita. I'm always staying here. This is always my home. So this is an eternal Dham. That's why it's known as Purushottam Kshetra, the place of the Supreme Lord. And he says, what do I do there? Because everybody wants to know, okay, then what do you do there? Right? He said, Pratidina, every day, Amara Bhojana Hoitati. Amara Bhojana, this is a place where he comes to eat. He likes to eat here very much. He says, Seshtanira Prabhave Jojana Dashabhumi. This place is 80 miles in size. And he says an interesting thing. Sabare dekai chaturbhuja deva gane bhuvana mangala kori kahi devastani Hare Krishna. He says that all the demigods, Shabare dekai Chaturbuja Devagani, the Devaganas, the demigods, they see everybody here has 4 hands. Even the insects. This Bhuvana Mangala, this place is a very, very auspicious place. Kori Kari Jeshtani. Now let me ask you, how many of you here would like to have 4 arms? Think about the benefits. Prasadam, 4 hands, at least 2, right? Or you can play mridanga and harmonium at the same time.
4 devices.
4 devices? Yeah, you can have a cell phone in each hand. That's amazing, right? That's good, huh? So raise your, how many of you here would like to have 4 hands? Pan around. 4 arms. Mataji would. That's good. That's good. Be honest. It's all right.
I will think about that.
He's going to think about it. All right. How many of you here really don't like the idea? Raise your hand. Others are just kind of in between. It's all right. 3.
We want to know what Krishna wants.
Yeah, we want to know what Krishna wants. What are we supposed to do? There's a nice verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is also quoted one time in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Siddhanta Tvastubede Pi Shrisha Krishna Swarupaya Rasana Krisate Krishna Rasam Esha Rasa Stitihi. That although Lord Narayan has 4 arms and Krishna are Siddhanta Beda, they're non-different, Abeda in terms of Siddhanta. But in terms of rasa, Krishna is superior. And so most Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, it's okay. 4 arms are all right too. But most Gaudiya Vaishnavas, sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifests 6, so don't feel bad. Most Gaudiya Vaishnavas want to have 2. So then, what is the nature of this place? We should be careful. This is a place for everybody, even the mosquitoes, Even the ants, even the spiders, look, they have 8 legs, they actually have 4. They have 4 arms, according to the demigods. And did you ever wonder why this place is so popular with ISKCON devotees? I used to wonder. And then I came across the next verse. Nidrateo jaishane samadhi phala hoy, shayane pranama phala jutta devi koi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. This place is so special that anybody who just sleeps in this place, nidrate, nidra means sleep, nidrate o jaishtani, samadhi phalahoy, they get the benefit of being in samadhi. Very good. So next tomorrow morning, you sleep in till 9 o'clock in the morning, and the devotee comes and says, hey, get up. What do you got to get up from Mangalarti? You say, leave me alone. I'm in samadhi. It's bona fide. Chaitanya Bhagavat says. I realize this is maybe why so many devotees like Jagannath Puri very much. And Sayane Pranama follows. Just by laying down in this place, you get the benefit of doing pranams. Pradakshina phala, Paikole Brahma. Just by wandering around in this place, you get the benefit of circumambulating all the holy places. It's really an amazing place. And he says something else. Hena se chaitera ati prabhava nirmala matsya kaile opaya abhishera nolahe. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, he says that anybody who comes here and they eat fish, they eat fish in this place, they get the benefit of eating havishya. Now, what is havishya? Havishya is some grains, maybe wheat or something, which they soak in ghee, and they sit in the sun, and it's considered to be very, very sattvic, very purifying for the consciousness. So if you eat fish, just like that, no, not for you, Prabhuji. If you see him, don't do that, okay? We can't do it because you're initiated devotees. You're chanting Krishna Nam. You're in a different category. But when you see people eating fish on the street, don't criticize them. Think, oh, he's purifying his consciousness by eating that thing.
Where does this extend to? The whole Kanchal area, or just Puri Dham, or just Puri,
He's saying,
municipality, or what?
Seshtanira Prabhavai Jojana Dasabhumi, which means that the Sri Kecha area, which Bhubaneswar is the entrance to, that 80-mile area. This is in the context of this. Bhakti Rupabu is a legal person. We have to know. Okay. So that doesn't apply for devotees. And he says, Seshtane Nahika Jamadanda Adhikar. That Jamaraj Nahika Jamadanda Adhikar. He has no right, Jamaraj has no ability to chastise anyone here. That's pretty good. It also kind of indicates another subtle thing. This is not the place to serve Yamaraj by criticizing other people. And therefore, for that reason, Ramachandra Puri had to leave. He couldn't fit into this place. That's another story. He says, in this place, Krishna says, Ami Kori Bhala Manda Vichar Sabar. I decide in this place who's good and who's bad. I personally make it, not Yamaraj, not any of the brahmacharis, or the temple presidents, or anyone else. Not your friend, not Jamuna Rasa. You don't decide what's good and what's bad. Krishna decides. Not Vrinda Devi either. We don't decide. So, then what is this Dham? Is this place like Vaikuntha? Like Mathura, Dwarka, perhaps? There's some Vaishnavas who say that just as Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, There's a statement, famous statement, Vrindavana parityagya padekam nagachati. The Krishna doesn't even ever take one step outside of Vrindavan. Is that true? Who says that's true? Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Raise your hand if you say Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Okay? You're all saying that. But you know, I read this book called Krishna Book, and there's this chapter all about this fellow named Akrura, and he came to Vrindavan, and he took Krishna on a chariot, and they went to Mathura. So?
Vasudeva Krishna.
Vatsal Prabhu knows many things. No? Hare Krishna devotees are very tricky. According to our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, this is a very wonderful thing. I'm not going to go in this direction. It's a very elaborate. Once we gave a talk near Adi Kavi Prabhu's house in Gour Prabhu's house about who's really Krishna's mother. Is it Devaki or is it Yashoda? And it's a long topic, a long journey to go down. But really it's Yashoda. Not only because she has the most love, but because Krishna was born from her womb. Krishna was not born from the womb of Devaki. And we have proof. From the Bhagavatam, from Brahmavevarta Purana, from Harivamsa Purana, and other literatures, where it's stated that when Krishna appeared in, we'll just say appeared first, in Gokul, one of the ceremonies they performed was they cut the nabi, or the cord between Mother Yashoda and baby Krishna. That's pretty good proof. Krishna is actually the son of Yashoda. So then, what is this stuff about baby Krishna in Mathura and Kamsa's prison and things? Rupa Goswami, Baladeva Vibhushan, different acharyas have explained that that's Vasudeva Krishna. That's the opulent expansion of the Lord. And on the order of Vasudeva Krishna, Vasudeva, his father, carried Vasudeva Krishna across the Jamuna River to Gokul, and by the potency of Yoga Maya, everyone went to sleep there. And by the potency of Yoga Maya, Vasudeva couldn't see that Yashoda had actually given birth to twins, a baby boy and a baby girl, and he put the child, the baby Vasudeva Krishna, down on the bed next to Yoga Maya. And that Vasudeva Krishna entered into the body of Nandanandan Krishna, who's Swayam Rup Govinda, the original form of the Lord. And for over 16 full years, he was there. And it was he who killed Putana and Vatsasura and Aristasura and many of the demons, not all the demons. That's another story. He didn't kill Shankachuda. Vasudeva Krishna didn't kill Shankachuda. It's another topic. And it wasn't Vasudeva Krishna who dealt with Kaliya. That's also another topic. But in general, it was that Vasudeva Krishna, that opulent feature of the Lord, who killed the demons. And so when Akrura came and took Krishna away, and they took bath, Krishna and Balaram took bath, and Akrura got, some say that they stayed under the water, and it was Vasudeva Krishna who came out of the water and went with Akrura to Vrindavan. And that Nandanandan Krishna stayed in Vrindavan. Where did he stay? That's a very confidential topic. Some say that he's hiding in the bushes still, just to watch the gopis. Some say that he entered into the heart of Srimati Radharani, and he became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's other descriptions. It's a very interesting subject. That's another. Sometimes we do a whole seminar on how Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. We're not going there now. Okay, so we're just establishing. Some people say that just as Krishna doesn't leave Vrindavan, but it's Vasudeva who leaves. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't leave Navadvip. And when it seems like he leaves, it's a Vasudeva feature. That feature who's there, Paritanaya, Vinashraya Daduskritam Dharma Samstarpana, who kills the demons and who establishes Dharma. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always in Navadvip with his mother and with his wives. And those are the pastimes which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says we meditate on. Huh? When Krishna goes to Mathura, where does he stay? Give you a hint, not an MVT. He stays in the house of Kubja. Okay? Good. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to Jagannath Puri, where does he stay? In Kashi Mishra's house. So, who is Kashi Mishra in Krishna Lila? According to Kavi Kanapur and Gour Gandesh Dipika, says, Mathurayam Paraya Sit Sairindri Krishna Vallabha Sadhya Nilat Talabasa Kashi Mishra Prabhu Priya. That person who's known as Sairindri or Kubja, in Krishna Lila, she became Kashi Mishra in Gour Lila. Another question. We know, we said Akrura takes Krishna away from Vrindavan. Who takes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or seems to take him away? Who takes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu away from Mayapur, Navadvip? I'll give you a hint. It's not one of the trains. Okay? So that, who is it takes him away? Is a person named Keshava Bharati. Keshava Bharati, he took him away by giving him sannyas. And Sachimata was not very happy about that. So who is Keshava Bharati in Krishna Lila? Kavi Karnapur says, Itikechit Prabhasante Akrura Keshava Bharati. The Keshava Bharati is Akrura. Okay? So we finished our discussion. Right? We've established that Jagannath Puri is like Mathura or Dwarka. When Krishna left Vrindavan, Akrura took him away. The same Akrura came as Keshava Bharati and took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu away. And when Krishna went to Mathura, he stayed in the house of Kubja. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Puri, he stayed in the house of the same Kubja, who's now come as Kashi Mishra. So they say that just as Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never leaves Navadvip Mayapur. So that's our topic. Finished. Is everybody satisfied with that? I worked really hard. We collected a lot of pramanas. There's a lot of solid evidence here to support what I just said. But Vatsalprabhu is saying he's not satisfied. And raise your hand, who's satisfied with this so I can finish and we can have prasadam? Who's not satisfied with this conclusion that this place is like Mathura, Dwarka? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you. See, one of the things we want to do, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary on the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says there's three basic levels of practice of bhakti. What is the first? Is abhyasa. Abhyasa, manana, and smarana. Krishna says in Gita, abhyasa yoga yuktena. Abhyasa means to practice. You should practice yoga. You should clean the temple room, and you clean the temple room, you clean the temple room, and while you're cleaning the temple room, you're thinking about your old girlfriend. While you're cleaning the temple room, you're remembering that song you liked from the Beatles, this or that. But you keep cleaning the temple room. And after some time, something happens. The temple becomes clean. Our heart becomes clean. And then we can come to the next stage, which is called manana. Manana means when we begin to think about things. And manana is a very important stage for bhakti. We should contemplate, we should think about things. So I believe firmly this is one of the important functions of a preacher, someone who's speaking, not just to give information, but to make devotees think. So I'm very happy everybody's thinking in this way. And after our mind becomes peaceful, practicing abhyasa, doing abhyasa, we come to the platform of manana. We can start to think, why do we clean the temple? Well, Prabhupada said, we clean the temple because Krishna's pleased when we think about what we're doing. And then we can come to the third stage, which is samadhi. Some people say that the Samadhi, what's the word? The Samadhi means death. Yeah, the Smarna, you come to the platform of Smarna. And the Smarna means Marna. Marna means death. And so when we've died, we've given up all hope. No, you've already had 6 girlfriends, and it didn't work before. The next one's probably also not going to work. We give up hope. And we die materially. Then we can come to the platform of Smarna. And naturally Krishna comes to our mind and our hearts. This is a little footnote. So you're not satisfied. I worked really hard on this. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami he says that it was here in Jagannath Puri that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited the topmost ecstasy. In the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami, he says, Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima, Kidjisovanayaiva, Swadyoyane Bhuta Madhurima, Kidjisova Madiyaha, Sokyam Chashamanana Bhavata Kidjisamvati Loba, Tabhavaja Samajani Sachi Garba Sindhurinda. That Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to fulfill 3 desires. Very important verse. I won't go so much into that now. But he later says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that those 3 desires were fulfilled here in Jagannath Puri. Those desires were not fulfilled in Mayapur. Now why is it, just as a little footnote, why is it that in the Gauranga Leela Smarna, a book by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which describes the daily pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why doesn't he speak about Puri? Why does he only speak about Mayapur? And some Vaishnavas say this is proof that the Mayapur Leela is the topmost Leela. I don't know of any commentaries to explain that. But I do know this point, that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says that Krishna had vijoge jata prema chishtita, asvadiya purna koila apana vanchita. That here in Jagannath Puri, when Mahaprabhu was feeling separation, asvadiya, he was tasting that. And therefore, purna kaila apana vanchita, he satisfied those 3 desires here in Puri, not in anywhere else. So, I have some thoughts I'll share with you about this. Why it is that Vishwanath has given us this meditation of Mahaprabhu in Mahabhadweep and not in Puri. Because we hear in Puri the devotees are not happy when they hear about Mahaprabhu shaving his head. When you shaved your head and you put on saffron, was your mother happy? She was not happy. Mothers don't like that. Say, Mom, I'm going to be a brahmachari the rest of my life. And she starts crying like anything, right? Mothers are not happy with that. Sachimanta is not happy when Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. If you write your mother and she says, how are you doing? You say, I'm sleeping on the floor. And I fast every Ekadasi. And I won't eat sweets. I'm doing all these austerities. Your mother will cry, isn't it? She doesn't want to hear about that. The heart of a mother is the heart of a devotee. The devotees, they don't like to hear about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laying on the floor in the Gambhira. They don't like to think about him taking sannyas and shaving his head and beautiful hair. The barber who shaved his head, his name was Madhu. And after he shaved the head of Mahaprabhu, he took a vow, I'm not shaving anyone else's head after this. It took him the whole day because he just couldn't tolerate. Mahaprabhu's hair was so beautiful. He'd start to cut it and he'd start crying. I can't do this, no. And Mahaprabhu said, no, you do. No, I can't do it. And everybody else is crying. And Mahaprabhu was saying, do it. And everybody's saying, no, don't do. And poor Madhu, it took him the entire day to shave Mahaprabhu's head. And after he shaved his head, he said, forget it, that's it. I'm not going to shave anybody else's head after that. And he became a mishtiwala. He started selling sweets instead. He changed his profession after that. So this is my humble thought, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us the Navadvip meditation because we don't like to think of Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. But it doesn't mean that his ecstasies that he's experiencing there are the same as his ecstasies here. In Navadvip, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes was in the mood of Dhruva Maharaj, sometimes Prahlad Maharaj, sometimes he was in the mood of Balaram, sometimes he's in the mood of Lord Shiva, and he jumped on the shoulders of one Shiva Bhakta and he started shouting, I'm Maheshwar. That's me. And the devotee started offering prayers to Lord Shiva. Sometimes he's in the mood of Lakshmi Devi there. Sometimes he's in the mood of the queens in Dwarka. Sometimes he's in the mood of the gopis. And sometimes in the mood of Radha. But what is the special quality of Radharani's love? It's one-pointed. And therefore Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana. That for those who are on this path, they should be one-pointed. So is Krishna one-pointed? He's bahusaka. He's multi-pointed because he reciprocates with everyone. What is it like for him? You have Ukrainian soldiers praying, please God, please save me, save my family. You have Russian soldiers who are also praying. Putin's also praying to God. He's also praying. Zelensky's also praying. Biden's also praying. The Christians are praying. The Muslims are praying. So many different, and he answers everybody's prayer. He's Mahabahusaka. But we want Krishna with Radharani. That's Vyavasyatmika buddhi, ekeha. That's one-pointedness. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, he's Bahusaka. He's reciprocating with Sachimata and with Vishnupriya and with Gadadhar Pandit and with Mukunda and so many friends and so many different devotees in so many different ways. And Murari Gupta, who's Hanuman, and Mahaprabhu goes and pees on his lunch. He reciprocates in so many different ways with so many different devotees in Navadvip. But he can't fulfill his three desires doing that. Because to taste the mood of Radha, he has to become one-pointed. So he takes sannyas. And that sannyas in Gaudiya Vaishnavism means the mood of Radha. And he comes to Jagannath Puri to become one-pointed. To taste the mood of Srimati Radharani here. And therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says about Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the Gambhira. Shri Radhikara Cheshta Jena Udava Darshane Ehi Mata Dasa Ehi Mata Dasena Prabhava Hoilati Giringe Hare Krishna Hare Krishna how many sessions? I think we've just done 100 sessions. And usually on Tuesday, this time of the day, we're doing a series we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. And we haven't left Vrindavan yet. We haven't yet gone. We've gone to Mathura, we haven't yet gone to Dwarka. We're speaking about the path of tears, the trail of tears, which goes to Kurukshetra and ends up in Jagannath Puri. But we've been stuck for the last 50 sessions and the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, which is the Brahmara Gita. And that Brahmara Gita chapter, some Vaishnavas say, is the most important chapter in the Bhagavatam. More important than Krishna's appearance, more important than the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, more important than the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Leela. Why is that 47th chapter so important? Because it explains the height of Radharani's ecstasy. The last limit of her feelings of love, when Krishna had left Vrindavan. They describe the madness, the unmadana of Srimati Radharani. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Shri Radhikara Cheshta Jena Uddhava Darshane. That when Srimati Radharani saw Uddhava, Uddhava came with a message. That's the 47th chapter of the 10th canto of the Brahmara Gita. Uddhava came with this message. When Radharani saw Uddhava and her feelings of ecstasy just exploded, this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing here in the Gambhira. A Mata Dasha Prabhava, Hoi Ratri Didi, day and night. His mentality was like that. Nirantara hoy Prabhu viraha unnada Brahma moya cheshta sada kala moya bhagave Hare Krishna Hare Krishna What's the difference between Navadvip and Jagannath Puri? That's a big subject. If someone reminds me at the end, maybe we can say a little something more about that. I don't want to go in that direction right now, but just to say a little simple thing about it. One thing is that sometimes in Navadvip, Mahaprabhu's in the mood of the gopis or Radha. But Kaviraj Goswami here uses the word Nirantara. Nirantara, he's constantly in the mood of the gopis who are experiencing this viraha unmadana, this madness of ecstasy and separation. To taste that, he had to give up his mother. He had to give up his wife. He had to give up his friends. He had to give up everything. That's renunciation in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's not Vanashram Dharma. It's not that the gopis decide one day, hey, I was thinking, maybe I'd like to take sannyas. Maybe I'd like to become renounced. The gopis don't have conversations like that. It's not a mental adjustment or some idea they have. It arises from their hearts. Udgirna. It just explodes. That's the nature of their renunciation. That's renunciation in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So Mahaprabhu is in that mood. Nirantara hoya prabha viraha unmada. He's constantly feeling separation here. Brahma moya cheshasada pralapa moya vanda. And he's speaking like the gopis speak, like Radharani speaks in that Brahma Ragit section of the 10th canto. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says about Mahaprabhu's mood here. Kahanahi suni jay bhavera vikar Shehi bhava hoy prabhu sharire prachare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Nahi shuni, kaha nahi shuni. No one's ever seen, no one's ever heard. Jibhavira vikar, of the kind of ecstasies that Mahaprabhu exhibited here in Puri. Adikavi Prabhu, he's trying to argue that Mayapur is the best. We know, yes. Okay, tell me, how many times was blood coming from the skin of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Mayapur? We've never heard of that. But there was blood coming from his skin. How many times in Mayapur did it look like there were tennis balls or golf balls under his skin? But that happened here in Jagannath Puri. How many times in Mayapur or Vrindavan, Ras Leela, you can answer this, did we see water shooting out from Mahaprabhu's eyes like a squirt gun? We've never heard of that. How many times in Mayapur, Vrindavan, do we hear about Mahaprabhu's bones becoming elongated? But it happened here. How many times? Separated. How many times do we hear in Mayapur, Vrindavan, about Mahaprabhu's bones, his arms and legs shrink inside of his body? That's pretty strange. We've never heard of an ecstasy like that before. Tell me what book you find that in. It's not mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And therefore he says, we've never heard of these kind of ecstasies. We don't find them anywhere else. That Mahaprabhu was exhibiting here in Jagannath Puri, and this was his prachar. This was his preaching. This is like Ayendra Prabhu preached. He stayed in Vrindavan and did kirtan, but that was preaching. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a vision. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, stay in Jagannath Puri and do kirtan in front of Haridas Thakur's Samadhi. And that kirtan will be heard all over the world. So this was Mahaprabhu's preaching about this place. And this Dham is such a very, very special Dham. Our Goswamis have described in many, many different places. Srila Prabhupada has described also in different places about the nature of this Dham. He writes in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22, 132. Let's see here if I can find that. Srila Prabhupada says, the conclusion is that Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, and Vrindavan Dham are identical. Prabhupada says it. They're identical. Or to quote another authority, we should quote authority. Who's another authority on this subject matter is Sachimata. And Sachimata, she says, Nila Chale, Navadvipe, Jai Duigar. That these two places are two rooms in the same house, Navadvip and Jagannathpuri. Prabhupada says three places, Vrindavan, Puri, and Mayapur. So just like you have a house, Mataji, you have a house. She came for some of her yatras. Maybe you invite me, Krishna Kun, to come to your house sometime. And in your house, you have a bathroom, you have a kitchen. You don't do the same thing in the bathroom and the kitchen, do you? Good. It's something very different. But it's the same house. It's not that when you go to the bathroom, you have a different conscious, I'm not that person now. When I go to the kitchen, no, you're the same person. But we use those different rooms in different ways. So these three places, Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham, and Jagannathpuri Dham, Srila Prabhupada says, they're the same. But they're three rooms in the same house which serve a little different purpose. Vrindavan Dham is Madhurja Mohi Dham, the place of sweetness, and Aradhya Bhagavan Brajay Satanayas Taddhama Vrindavanam. Our goal is Vrindavan. That's the place we want to go to. But Mayapur is also within Vrindavan. But Mayapur is Odarja Mohi Dham. It's a place of great kindness and mercy. It's a place of Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho, with lotus-eyed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes the father of the Sankirtan movement. And Jagannath Puri Dham is the place of Aishvarja. But it's described by Srila Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamita. What does he say there? Excuse me. I just want to get a book which is just... The best place to keep slokas is in your mind. And if you can't do that, at least you should write them down somewhere. So let's see. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he describes the nature of Jagannath Puri in his Brihad Bhagavatamita. Shri Krishna Devasya Siddha Priyam Tat Chaitam Yata Sri Mathura Tataiva. That this Sri Ketra, it's just as dear to Krishna as Braj Mandala is. This is Jagannath Puri. But what is the nature of this place? Tat Paramaishvarya Bara Prakasha. In this place, Paramaishvarya Bara Prakasha. This great, great opulence manifested. Am I translating it properly? He knows the Sanskrit. Tat Paramaishvarya Bara Prakasha. Lokanusari Vyavahara Ramyam. So there's great opulence here, but there's also great mercy. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's known as Sarvabhauma Shodhana. He's a purifier of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He's known as Gajapati Tarana here in Jagannath Puri. He delivers Maharaj Prataparudra. So it's also a place of mercy. It's a place of opulence. It's a Sri Mandir. But it's also a place of mercy. It's a place of Patit Pavan Jagannath. He's very, very merciful. He comes out of the temple. But it's a third quality here also. Lokanusari Vyavahara Ramyam. Ramyam means something very delightful, something very, very sweet. But that sweetness which we find in the Gambhira, that sweetness that we find in the pastimes and the katha shared by Shub Damodar and Roy Ramananda with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that sweetness is covered by the opulence here in this place. So Jagannath Puri has many different places, has many different things. It's described in the Brihad Bhagavatamita about it in a number of different places. I'm trying to think. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he says in Brihad Bhagavatamita, Tasmin Subhadra Balaram Samyutas Tamvai Vinodham Purushotamo Bhajet Chakresa Govardhana Brinda Katavi Kalinda Jatira Ruvi Swayamiyam. So here in Jagannath Puri you'll find Jagannath Baladi Subhadra, but you'll also find three things. Chakresa Govardhana, you'll find Govardhan Hill. Chakresa Govardhana Brinda Katavi, you'll find the Vrindavan forest. Kalinda Jatira Ruvi Swayamiyam. You'll find Kalindaja, or the Jamuna River, here in Jagannath Puri, because this is Gupta Vrindavan. And therefore, it's described in the Purusha Bodhani Shruti, the Atharva Veda, Yata Bhargavi Jamuna, Govardhana Ratna Samasana, Bimala Sadosa Chandika Sadosa Gopyaha. That here is the Govardhan Hill, the Jamuna River is here, and the 16 gopis of Vrindavan, the Astasakis and the Astamanjaris, are also present here. Therefore, in the Vaishnava Tantra, it said, Mathura Dwarka Lila Yakodo Ticha Gokuli Nilachala Stata Krishna Sta Eva Rachati Prabhu. That whatever pastimes Krishna performs in Mathura, Dwarka, and Dwarka, Mathura Dwarka, and in Gokul, Yakodo Ticha Gokule, in Braj, Nilachala Stita Krishna Sta Eva Rachati Prabhu. He manifests all those pastimes here in Jagannath Puri. So Jagannath Puri is many, many different things to many different people. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur, he says that according to the mood of the devotee, the Lord manifests a particular form. Je Rupa Chinte Dasi, say Rupa Hoy. According to the mood of the devotee, according to the mood of the person when they come to Puri. And if you have this smarta vichar, then you'll see Lord Jagannath maybe like Lord Narayan. Or maybe even like Ganesh, or like Jesus even, who knows. You may see him in so many different ways. And you're not wrong, because he's here for everybody. But if you're very, very fortunate, and you follow Goswami vichar, the mood of Rupa Goswami, as we might discuss in some later talks from Lalita Madhav, what Rupa Goswami indicates about Jagannath Puri. If you're very fortunate and you understand that thing, then you may see that Jagannath is actually Vrindavan Bihari Krishna. And that Jagannath Puri Dham is Vipralambha Ketra. It's a place of separation. It's a chamber, it's a room within Vrindavan. But this is a room where the devotees come and they cry in separation. This is a place we like to call the Jagannath Puri University of Bridgepram. It's a university which is opened by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the devotees how to do bhajan to attain Vrindavan. It's a place where we cry in separation from Vrindavan. It is Vrindavan, but it doesn't look like Vrindavan. Our Fakir Mahaprabhu once told us that Narendra Sarovar is Radhakund. And we like going there and offering prayers to Radhakund, but it doesn't look like Radhakund. It looks very different. And the Bhargavi River, which is going around Jagannath Puri, is like the Jamuna, but it doesn't look like the Jamuna. Chatak Parvat is Govardhan Hill, but it doesn't look like Govardhan Hill. But Mahaprabhu saw Chatak Parvat as Govardhan. He saw the Jagannath Vallabha Gardens as a Vrindavan forest. He saw the ocean as a Jamuna. And he was experiencing Vrindavan. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, he tells about different devotees who also saw Vrindavan here in Puri, who were doing their bhajan, and suddenly they saw the Vrindavan forest. In the Skanda Purana, it says that Lord Shiva, he came to the place which is now known as Chandanpur, just on the outside of Puri, on the bank of the Bhargavi River. And in the Skanda Purana, it said that he sat down there and started meditating. And suddenly he saw, wow, look at this, all these birds. And he saw Govardhan Hill, and he saw the Jamuna. He saw Vrindavan. Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamita, he says that Gopakumar saw Vrindavan here in Jagannath Puri. If a devotee is very, very fortunate, he may see that. But we see that through the conception, through the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, and that's known as Goswami Vichar. Therefore, my Guru Maharaj used to say that Lord Jagannath is Aishvarja Madhurja Yugala Milan. He's a combined form of both opulence and sweetness. And that's another topic. How Jagannath is Madhurja Rasa Ganayati Murti, how he's a condensed form of conjugal mellow. And where is Radha in connection with Jagannath? Because if we speak all these things, Prabhuji knows some Braj Tattva, he knows Braj, he has a house in Vrindavan. He's going to say, this is all really nice, but Kotai Radha. If you want to tell me that Jagannath is Vrindavan Bihari Krishna, then where is Radha? That's part 2. We won't go in that direction right now. I want to stop there. We've gone really a little late. I'm sorry. I want to ask the devotees, because we're not here to give a lecture. Giving a lecture is a really horrible, uncomfortable thing. But we want to share something with friends. But sharing something with friends means parasparanu katanam bhavanam bhagavad mita rate mitastushya navita mita atmana. 11th canto of the Bhagavatam describes there should be some back and forth, some reflections from the devotees. Maybe Bhakti Prabhu has something he wants to add, or Vatsal Prabhu, or some other devotees, or maybe there's some questions or something. Brinda's been living here now for some time, and Jamuna Rasa, they're becoming very expert in Jagannath Puri. They know many things they could tell you. Anybody has any reflections they want to share in the comments? As our dear friend Vaisheshkaru puts it another way, did you win a prize? Is there something you liked from the talk today? Did you win a prize? And what was that prize? Would you like to share it with us? Krishna Kun, can you speak really loud? And I'm going to repeat what you said, okay? Because they won't hear the voice in the mic. But you could turn it so you can see.
I like when you talked about Jagannath Puri, how in this place, Yamaraj has no jurisdiction. And how you made the point that therefore this is also not the place for us to criticize anyone, and therefore Ramachandra Puri had to leave this place. And especially, I was thinking about this, that here Jagannath personally decides, Mahaprabhu personally decides who is good and who is bad.
You mean it's not up to Brinda or Jamuna Rasa to decide?
No, it's up to someone else. But also, this also means that because Krishna is a hard person, he just has loving relationships. Lord Narayan has all these rules. Vaikuntha, he has rules. But Krishna, he has a heart. So I was just thinking that this can also be considered one of the pramanas for
Yes, excellent point.
Jagannath being Vrindavan Bihari Krishna.
Right. In other words, this is Krishna's intimate home. This is not his office. Looks like his office. Sometimes we have an office and a bed in the same place. It may look like his office. For some people it is. But this is his home. And he makes the decisions here in this place. Who's good and who's bad. Anybody else like to share anything? Vatsal, would you have to say anything?
Мне очень переводить.
You can speak in Russian, Mataji can translate. You just have to speak real loud.
Мне очень понравилось
I really liked
то, что Господь Чайтанья для того, чтобы испытать вот эту канта бхакти,
that in order to experience the Kanta Bhakti, Lord Chaitanya
принимает саньясу.
accepts sannyas.
И здесь в Джаганатхапуре, если в Майяпуре он испытывал много разных настроений, то здесь у него
In Mayapur he was experiencing many different moods, smells, and then here in Jagannathpuri
то есть здесь у него было одно настроение, это настроение Шримати Радхарани,
there's only one mood of love,
и настроение Маджари, который служит Радхе.
and the mood of Manjanis for serving Lord.
This is a good place for brahmacharis and sannyasis, actually. Mataji? Thank you, Bhuma. Speak loud, though, whatever language you speak.
I like that you told the gopis, they have this sannyas look inside.
The gopis have a sannyas mood.
Yeah, because because this is not external thing. This is internal consciousness.
Yes. And we see that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's a whole discussion about renunciation in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Rupa Goswami says that to have qualification for bhakti, you should not be too renounced or too attached. Too much renunciation, he says, is also bad for bhakti. We're not out to become renunciates. But our purpose is that we want to give everything to Guru and Gauranga. That's our brahmacharya, that's our sannyas. It's giving everything. It's positive, it's not a negative thing. Rasa Lila. Speak loud.
Мне много понравилось, и вот то, что очень так осознание такое пришло, что I liked many things, but one main realization I had, насколько Джаганнат, он всех любит, и всех летающих, и всех проповедует, потому что он доступен для всех. How Juggernaut is actually so loving, how much he loves everyone, and he's so accessible, so he's preaching for everyone. То есть к нему приходят все христиане, мусульмане, вайшнавы, политики, все. Everyone can approach him, the Muslims, the Christians, the Vaishnavas, the politicians. Он самый лучший проповедник. He is the best preacher in Kali Yuga.
You know, one of the amazing things about this Dham to me, there's an article we're working on for an upcoming magazine, where we're exploring how many deities, such as Sakshi Gopal, such as Vrindavan Chandra, worshipped by Nandini Devi, such as Vrindavan Chandra, worshipped by Kanai Kuntia, such as Gopal Ju and Gadai Giri. Many, many different deities were originally worshipped in Vrindavan. And those deities, Krishna came in a dream to their pujari and said, I want to go to Jagannath Puri. Sorry?
Or Gadagiri.
Or Gadagiri. I want to go to Orissa. I want to go to that place. We've never heard of Krishna saying, I want to leave Vrindavan. And he came here with Radharani. That's an extraordinary thing. Now when Rasa Leela and Adi Kavi Prabhu are speaking, I have to say it reminds me of this topic. It reminds me of something else also. Because you can't separate the devotees from the deity. And so when we think of Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madhav in Kiev, we think of Rasa Leela, Adi Kavi. They're two of the main pujaris here. And just as so many deities left Vrindavan and came here, so the pujaris for Radha Madhav, they also left Ukraine, and now they've come here to Jagannath Puri. We're very, very happy that you guys are here. Anybody else with any reflections or anything? Bhakti Rupa, anything you want to advocate? Mataji? Speak very loudly.
It's like you said, the places, they are not what they look like. We can see one thing, but this is actually now. And I was thinking that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't look like Krishna.
Yes. And she was saying the places aren't what they look like sometimes here. And I was thinking in the same way, which she came to the next point, was, and the devotees also are not what they look like either. Kashi Mishra is actually a girl. Sometimes some Vaishnavas want to dress up like girls. But actually it's the other way around. In Gour Leela, the girls came and dressed up as boys. And Lalita became Srup Damodar Goswami, and Vishaka became Roy Ramananda. And so many different ladies became, so many gopis and manjaris, they came in male forms with Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So it's very difficult to see who's who. It's different. We don't look at Rupa Goswami and think, oh, that's a girl. But it's Rupa Manjari. It is a girl. So this is an important, you could say, fundamental point in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishta, Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamyam, Dadati Swapadantikam. Rupa Goswami is such an important principle and personality. And we see that this principle there, that he's not what he looks like. And this Dham is not what it looks like always either. We have to look a little deeper. Okay, anybody else with anything? Prabhuji, have something? Speak real loud.
Thank you very much.
Очень сильно запала история, когда вот матку брила Господь Чайтанья Самади.
One story really touched me, how Madhu was shaving Lord and it took him the whole day.
Очень глубоко. Спасибо.
Touched me very deeply.
А еще вот реализация по поводу того, что Господь Джаганнат, он принимает всех. И вот недавно преданные приехали с России сюда. И Джаганнат как бы сказал, ну, они молились, они христиане сейчас 17 лет. И 12 лет были преданными, санкиртанили, распространяли книги. Я им проповедовал, что надо, ну там, мы друг другу проповедовали.
And one more realization about how Jagannath is accepting everyone. Just some devotees recently came to Jagannath Puri, devotees from Russia, and they've been Christians for 17 years, and they've also been doing Harinam Sankirtan for 12 years. So we've been like preaching to each other and encouraging each other.
Вот. И суть в том, что они молились очень долго, и там, что это было не лукаво.
So the point is that they've been preaching, they've been praying to Lord Jagannath, and Jagannath,
Ну да, то есть,
and Jagannath has invited them here. So
то, что они очень сомневались, и много времени они думали, они все продали там, и приехали в Джаганатпури сейчас.
they had many doubts, but eventually they just sold everything and they came to Jagannath Puri. So they abandoned everything, came to Jagannath Puri.
Really? There's a letter that Srila Prabhupada, your comment reminds me of a letter that Prabhupada wrote. I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick. To the Governor General of Canada, his name was Ronald Michener, I think his name was. And Prabhupada wrote this letter, and let's see if I've got it here. He described what is ISKCON. What is the mood of ISKCON? Let's see if I can bring up this letter. Yes, Ronald Michener, he's the Governor General of Canada. This was 24th August 1968. He said, speaking about ISKCON, ISKCON, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, is a non-lucrative organization. That's the first thing. ISKCON is not meant to make money. Whose purpose is to promote the well-being of human society by drawing its attention to God. We're a non-sectarian society. Our members include people from Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, as well as Hindu faiths. And Prabhupada says that within ISKCON, they can keep their particular faith and still be a member of ISKCON. That's really far out. How many times do we hear that amongst devotees? Generally we don't. But we see that here in Jagannath Puri, practically. And as our society becomes more mature, I think we'll appreciate that anyone who comes to our temple, anyone who wants to take any aspect of Krishna consciousness, they're our friend. They may not be an intimate friend. They may be a sahaja. They may be a mayavadi. They may be this or that. But they're our friend because they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're taking prasadam, or they're reading Gita or something. They have something in common with us. And we celebrate unity and diversity. And that celebration of unity and diversity is Jagannath Puri. So thank you, Prabhuji. It's a nice story. Okay, anybody else with anything? We should go ahead and finish, I think. Yeah. What's that, Kun? Should have Artik for Giriraj. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to have Artik for Giriraj. Maybe we can live stream that also. It's kind of cool to watch. We'll push this thing aside a little bit. So, Srila Prabhupada ki, Veda Bhakta Binda ki, Jagannath Puri Dhamma ki, Gopremanandi Hari Hari Bo, Manchako Kripa Sindhu Veda, Upanam Pavani, Vaishnavi Kodi Vaishnavi. So, Brinda and Jamuna Rasa, here, can you pass out some songs? We have a special song we sing for Giriraj. Okay. Good. And if we need,
I can move.
can this go up further? Maybe it can't. You can do like that if need be. Jayagiri Govardhana, Govardhana, Haridasa Vayo, Jayagiri Govardhana, Jaya Giri Govardhana.
Parivrajakacharya Statara Shata Shishima Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Krishna Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Statara Shata Shishima Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Nava Acharya Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vrinda ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Bhakti Nashya Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dhama ki Shri Mayapur Navadvipa Dhama ki Jagannath Puri Dhama ki Nitai Gaur Premanande Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki Gangamai Madamai ki Shri Hari Nama Sankirtana Яги ки. Издание распространен из ученик книг Шрилы Прабхупады ки. Слава всем собравшимся преданным. Слава всем собравшимся преданным. Слава всем собравшимся преданным. Слава, слава Шри Гуру Шри Гора.
So, dear devotees, if anyone needs to use a bathroom, wash your hand. There's a bathroom right here, and a sink right here. And we're going to go upstairs, yes?
Yes.
And we're all going to take prasadam. Yeah. I'm really sure. This is a beautiful painting. Some of these paintings here are by Kaveri. She, from America, she gave us these paintings. These are 4 paintings by Kaveri. This is a painting by Anuradha from Poland. Hare Krishna. Jai Jagannath.